With only hours left before his execution, his final request shocked everyone. It wasn't for a last meal, a phone call, or even a prayer.
It was to see his dog one last time.
What happened next would shake the prison walls, silence the guards, and expose a truth that had been buried for years. That morning, the air inside the Huntsville State Penitentiary in Texas felt different. Heavier. Every sound, the rattle of keys, the echo of boots on the concrete floor, seemed to carry a weight that pressed down on everyone inside. In his cell, 38-year-old Michael Carter sat on the edge of his cot, hands loosely clasped, eyes locked on the scuffed gray floor. He wasn't the same man who had entered this prison 7 years earlier. Time, regret, and silence had carved deep lines into his face, softening the once fiery defiance in his eyes. The guards expected the usual request, a steak dinner, a phone call to family, maybe a final letter. But when the warden asked, Michael's voice was steady and clear. "I want to see Duke, my dog." The room fell into silence. Some of the guards exchanged surprised glances. A condemned man choosing a dog over people? Unheard of. But for Michael, Duke was more than a pet. He was family, the one who had stood by him before the trial, before the world had turned its back. In his last hours, Michael didn't want forgiveness from strangers. He just wanted to look into the eyes that had never judged him. The warden leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. He'd seen strange last requests before. Ice cream, a guitar, even a priest who never showed up. But bringing a dog into a maximum security prison on execution day? Never. The control room buzzed with debate. "It's a security risk," one officer muttered. "We've never allowed an animal in here, especially for death row." But an older officer, quiet and steady, spoke up. "Duke is all he has left. No visitors, no letters, no family. Maybe we should let him go in peace." The warden reviewed Michael's file. His record was spotless, no fights, no escape attempts, no rule violations. In the personal notes, owned a German Shepherd named Duke for 8 years. The dog was seized during his arrest. After a long silence, the warden finally nodded. "Yard only. 10 minutes. Strict supervision." Word spread fast through the prison. Some guards shook their heads, others whispered about the bond between a man and his dog. For Michael, those 10 minutes were eternity. Somewhere out there, Duke was on his way, and neither man nor dog could have guessed how much this reunion would change everything. The prison yard stood silent as the far gate creaked open. Michael stood a few feet from a lone chair, his wrists cuffed loosely in front of him, eyes locked on the entrance. And then there he was. Duke trotted in, his black and tan coat gleaming under the pale morning sun. 2 officers held him on a leash, but the moment Duke spotted Michael, his ears shot forward and his tail began to wag. Slow at first, then faster. Michael's breath caught. Years had passed, but nothing, the gray around Duke's muzzle, the stiffness in his legs, could disguise the loyal friend he'd raised from a pup. The officers hesitated, waiting for the warden's signal. One nod. The leash loosened. Duke bolted. Michael dropped to his knees just as the dog barreled into his chest, pressing his head into Michael's shoulder, whining a sound caught between joy and heartbreak. For a brief moment, the prison melted away. No countdown. No execution order. Just a man and his dog, reunited after years of separation. Michael buried his face in Duke's fur, breathing in that familiar scent of earth, leather, and home. Memories flooded back. Long walks, muddy paws, quiet nights when Duke's steady breathing was the only thing that kept him sane. But then Duke froze. His body stiffened. Tail halted mid-wag. His ears locked forward, and a low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. Michael felt it before he heard it. Duke wasn't looking at him anymore. His gaze was fixed 10 feet away, on Officer Brad Jenkins, a tall, rigid guard standing at the edge of the yard. The growl deepened, teeth flashing in silent warning. Guards shifted uneasily. "Control your dog," one muttered. Michael placed a steady hand on Duke's back. "Easy, boy. It's okay." But it wasn't. Duke had never growled without reason. Jenkins avoided eye contact, his jaw clenched. Michael knew his dog's instincts, and Duke was never wrong. Officer Ramirez, a younger guard who'd always treated Michael with quiet respect, stepped closer. He spoke low. "Strange thing. Jenkins was on duty the night of your arrest, but he never filed a report. Not a single word. The thought hit Michael like a lightning strike. If Jenkins had been there, why was there no record? Before he could speak, Jenkins disappeared through the gate. Duke's growl lingered long after he was gone. Later that afternoon, Michael was brought to a small interview room. To his surprise, Duke was allowed to stay, sitting at his feet like a sentinel. Ramirez stood in the corner, arms crossed. Jenkins stood stiffly across the table, his eyes cold. The warden's voice cut through the tension. "Officer Jenkins, why didn't you disclose that you were on site the night of Michael Carter's arrest?" Jenkins shifted, his jaw tightening. "Didn't think it mattered. I was off duty, just passing by." Before anyone could respond, Duke erupted with a sharp, thunderous bark, teeth bared, eyes locked on Jenkins. Ramirez's eyes narrowed. "Funny," he said, "because a witness just came forward. They saw a man matching your description leaving Michael's house right before the police arrived." The warden's face darkened. "Effective immediately. The execution is delayed. We're reopening the case." Michael felt air rush back into his lungs. Not freedom. Not yet, but hope. The investigation moved quickly. The witnesses' testimony, the retested fingerprints, none of them matched Michael. They matched Jenkins. Weeks later, the truth came out. Jenkins had been the one at the scene. He had planted evidence. He had committed the crime. Jenkins was arrested. Michael's conviction was overturned. And after 7 long years, the gates of Huntsville swung open, not to take his life, but to set him free. Outside the prison, Duke waited. His tail wagged like it hadn't in years. Michael dropped to his knees, wrapping his arms around the dog that had saved him. "We made it, boy," he whispered. "We finally made it." For the first time in years, Michael walked forward with no cuffs, no guards, no walls, just open sky and the sound of Duke's paws beside him. The world hadn't changed much, but Michael had. He wasn't the man defined by a prison sentence. He was the man his dog had believed in all along. And thanks to that loyalty, he had a second chance to live and to prove Duke right. This story reminds us that love doesn't need words and loyalty doesn't bend under pressure. Sometimes the truth doesn't come from a courtroom. It comes from a dog who remembers.